Hello, students, and welcome! Today, we're going to explore a very important concept in civics, federalism. We'll break down exactly what it is, look at its key features, and understand the different ways federations are formed across the world.
So here's our plan for today. We'll start with a quick revision of what federalism means. Then we'll dive into the essential features that make a country a true federation. After that, we'll look at the two main routes through which federations are formed. And finally, we'll wrap it up with a recap and some very useful tips for your exams.
All right, let's get started. First things first, let's quickly refresh our memory on the basic idea of federalism. You might remember this from our earlier discussions on power sharing.
So what is federalism really? Well, to put it simply, it's a system where power isn't concentrated in one place. Instead, it's divided. This means that any country with a federal system has at least two levels or tiers of government. Our own country, India, is a perfect example of this. We have the central government for the entire nation, and then we have state governments for each of our states.
Now, you might wonder, why do countries choose this system? It's because federalism helps them achieve two very important goals at the same time. The first goal is to protect and encourage national unity. The second, which is just as important, is to make space for all the regional diversity that exists within the country. It's a balancing act, you see, and federalism provides the framework for it.
Okay, now that we've had a quick revision, let's move to the heart of our lesson today. What are the essential characteristics that make a country truly federal? Because you see, it's not enough to just have different levels of government. There are some specific conditions that must be met.
Let's look at these 7 key features one by one. First, as we've already discussed, there have to be 2 or more levels of government. Second, and this is very interesting, these different levels of government rule over these same citizens, but each level has its own specific area of power, which we call its jurisdiction. Let me give you an example. You are a citizen of India, so you are governed by the union government. At the same time, you live in a particular state, let's say Tamil Nadu or Punjab. So you are also governed by that state government. The union government makes laws about things like national defense, while the state government makes laws on subjects like local police. See? Same citizen, but different jurisdictions. Third, these areas of power are not just based on a simple agreement, they are actually written down and guaranteed in the Constitution. Fourth, and this is a very important safeguard, the basic fundamental rules of the Constitution cannot be changed by just one level of government acting alone. Major changes need the agreement of both the central and the state governments. Fifth, what if there's a disagreement? This is where the courts come in. The courts have the power to interpret the Constitution and decide on the powers of the different government levels. Sixth, for any government to work, it needs money. So the sources of revenue, how each level gets its funds, are clearly laid out. This gives them financial independence. And finally, the 7th feature is about the spirit of federalism. It can only work if there is mutual trust and an agreement between all the different levels to live together and cooperate.
You know, the role of the judiciary is absolutely vital here. A good way to think about the highest court, like our Supreme Court, is to see it as an umpire in a cricket match. If a dispute arises between the central government and a state government about who has the power to do something, the court steps in. It looks at the rule book, which is the Constitution, and makes the final decision. This is so important to ensure that no single level of government becomes all-powerful.
So, we now understand the common features of federalism, but this leads us to another fascinating question. Even though federations share these features, the way they are actually formed can be quite different from one another, and the historical route a country takes has a big impact on how power is balanced. Let's explore the first route. This is known as a coming-together federation. In this type, independent states voluntarily decide to join together to create a bigger country. Why would they do this? Usually, it's to increase their security and strengthen their collective power, all while holding on to their own individual identities. Some great examples of this type are the United States of America, Switzerland, and Australia. A key thing to remember about this model is that all the constituent states are equal partners. They have equal power and are actually very strong in relation to the central or federal government. And now for the second route. This one is called a holding together federation. This is what happens when a large and diverse country decides to divide its power. The power is shared between the national government and the various states, mainly to manage the country's vast diversity more effectively. India is the perfect example of a holding together federation. Other countries like Spain and Belgium also fall into this category. In these cases, you have a big country that decides to share authority to, well, better hold itself together.
So let's just pause and compare the two. In coming together federations, you have independent states joining as equal partners. But in holding together federations, you have a system of shared authority where the central government often tends to be more powerful than the states. This is done to maintain unity. Also, in this holding together model, some states might even be given special powers that others don't have. Now, after discussing both these types, let's address a question that comes up a lot in exams and can be a point of confusion. Based on everything we've just learned, which type of federation is India?
The answer is quite clear. India is a holding together federation. And why is that? It's because India was already one large country that decided to divide its powers between a central authority, the union government, and the various states. And, as we know from our system, the central government in India holds more power than the state governments.
All right, we have covered a lot of very important ground today. Before we finish, let's quickly go over the key takeaways from this lesson that will really help you in your studies and exams.
So, to recap, we learned that federalism is a system with more than one level of government. It has two main goals: to keep the country united while also respecting its diversity. We went through the 7 essential features that a true federation must have. And finally, we explored the 2 types: coming together federations, like the USA, and holding together federations, like our own country, India.
And here is a final, very practical tip for your exams. Whenever you get a question on the features or types of federalism, please remember to use clear headings for each point. And most importantly, always give examples. Mentioning the USA for coming together and India for holding together will make your answer much stronger and more complete. I hope you found this lesson useful. Thank you for your attention.